Earlier in the season, the Western Conference was so weak, we weren't sure that any of the West teams deserved even to be in the playoffs.
Well, times are changing now, Greg.
Indeed they are. Next on Extra Time, how the West has won. Welcome to ET, everybody. Greg Lawless alongside Shep Messing. An interesting weekend gone by. The playoff picture either got clearer or more muddled depending on your point of view. If you're in the East, it got a little clearer at the top, as Columbus was the first team to clinch a playoff berth and New England looks pretty set. But Chicago, now in third place, they're struggling, Shep.
Well, Greg, we both thought that Brian McBride coming to that team would put them in MLS Cup final. Not sure right now.
Yeah, we're kind of wrong on that one. We'll look at Chicago's dying flame in a little more depth later on. We'll also answer some E questions, and Shep will renew his love affair with Landon Donovan in the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week. But first, let's head west, young man. Here's something I bet you'd never guess. The West, after playing second fiddle to the East all season long, has made an impressive comeback. In fact, in the past 4 weeks, Western Conference teams are 9-4-3 against Eastern Conference teams. Shep, what's going on here?
Greg, it's unbelievable. And I think there are a couple of factors. I think the schedule took its toll on the Eastern teams more than the West. Mm-hmm. Teams like DC United, tremendous amount of games, the travel to other cups, they've gone down. But I think it's really about parity. I mean, we thought in the beginning the West had talented teams. We talked about Dallas. We talked about Colorado. They weren't getting the most out of their roster. We've always talked LA Galaxy, a disbalanced, dysfunctional team, but they have talent. So I think it's parity, and they've just evened out.
Well, we also expected that 5 of the teams in the East would get in the playoffs. The most symbolic result so far has to be Dallas's 4-1 shellacking of Chicago this past weekend. Not only was the game in Chicago, but your favorite punching bag, Jeff Cunningham, had a fantastic game for FCD.
I'll tell you what, that was a great game to watch. It really was, and we've been talking about the chemistry or the lack of chemistry with Jeff Cunningham, Kenny Cooper. Well, they found themselves, and Jeff Cunningham, I'm going to give the guy credit, that final chip to Guardo for the 4th goal, that was world class.
It looks like the move to Dallas has really improved him.
There's no question. Schellas Hyman, I think, is a great motivator of men, and I'll give him credit because he knows how to talk to different players. He's certainly getting the best out of Jeff Cunningham. If that continues, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Well, the win actually puts Dallas now in 5th place in the Western Conference. They're only 1 point out of 3rd place, which would mean a guaranteed playoff spot. They're also, and this is interesting, only 3 points behind DC United for the 8th place wildcard spot. And get this, RSL and Colorado are just 4 points behind New York for the 7th place wildcard spot. Any chance that the conventional wisdom is about to flip and 5 Western teams make the playoffs?
Greg, yes.
There is a chance.
Yes,
all right.
But I'm a big believer that that's the very reason. You just have to go out and play the next 90 minutes. If you start now, at this juncture in the season, start to worry about wild card spots and how many points you need, just go play the next game because this is going to be wild right to the end.
Well, there's a lot of games coming up in the future right now with Eastern teams playing West teams. In fact, this week, 5 of the 7 matches feature interconference play. None of them bigger than Thursday's Los Angeles-Chicago game on ESPN2. With a win, LA would actually jump into 3rd place. That is the playoffs, man.
Playoffs for Beckham. Don't tell me the league doesn't love that. But that's the danger of the LA Galaxy. We saw it against DC United. Absolutely explosive. And I have a new opinion about who the leader on that team is.
Well, obviously it's Landon Donovan. And, of course, 3 points are certainly there for the taking on Thursday because the Chicago Fire are struggling mightily right now. Here's my theory. Brian McBride simply isn't working out. He's thrown off the balance that was working so well in the beginning. Since he arrived in the Windy City, the Fire are 2-4, and they've only scored 4 goals in that time. It's incredible to think about that.
I'm going to totally disagree with you.
Okay.
I agree they're struggling, but I'm not putting it on Brian McBride. Certainly, he hasn't been the solution, but he hasn't been the problem. For me...
But he came in being expected to be the solution.
But he needs service. Brian McBride is never a player that can beat you on the dribble with the ball at his feet. He's a guy that needs service, target player. Defensively, they have been tremendous, and you saw losing Samari to suspension that they totally fell apart.
And what about John Bush? What's going on with him? Do you think he's maybe getting a little tired after a full season?
I think John Bush will play well again. He's got to get it out of his head. I think he overthinks things. The bad goal carried on to the next game. I'm going to put it all on Blanco. I see a Blanco that doesn't look motivated anymore, and he looks tired.
Well, the Chicago defense actually still leads the league statistically, 24 goals against. However, 6 of them, a full fourth, have come in the last 2 games. And I agree with you about Blanco. In this last game, he just didn't look like he was there. He looks like he's coasting. He recently retired from the Mexican national team, which maybe he's, maybe he's finally thinking about ending it all.
I think you're right, and I think we've always agreed on it. He is the catalyst for this team. As Blanco goes, Chicago Fire will go.
Right.
If he gets re-energized, remotivated, plays well again, I still think they can get it done.
Well, they're facing LA this weekend, and of course that's the 2 DPs. David Beckham coming in as well. I mean, we've said similar things about Beckham over the last couple of weeks, about his body language not really saying much, not playing enough defense. This is a big matchup for these two.
And you know what? Superstars usually rise to the occasion. I think Blanco against Beckham.
National TV.
Yeah, big time. National TV. I think we're going to see the best out of both of them. I'm giving the edge, though, to L.A. because of Landon Donovan.
Well, that game is on ESPN2, as we mentioned. Chicago have the second worst home record in the league at 5-5-2, and 3 of their final 5 games are at Toyota Park. None of them are gimmies. They have the LA game, and then New York and Columbus come to Chicago. Their away schedule isn't bad, Kansas City and Toronto. But is it possible that the Fire could actually miss out on the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they can, Greg. And again, you alluded to their so-so record at home. They have to somehow get together, get back on the same page. I mean, maybe chemistry did get shaken up when Brian McBride came. There is a little margin for error now. They have to turn it around.
Well, even Dennis Hamlet's a little bit concerned about this.
Our last 2 games, I think we've been a little bit, we've sort of taken our foot off the gas. We have to understand now that we have to be ready to compete in these games because I told the group today, we're not in the playoffs yet. And if we continue to play the way we have done in the last 2 games, we won't be in the playoffs.
After Hamlet's team lost Dallas 4-1 on Sunday, Dallas coach Shellis Hyndman said speed was the determining factor, Shep.
Well, if you're the Chicago back line and speed's an issue, you do not want to be facing Landon Donovan.
That's true. I mean, LD has seemed to have found a 6th gear over the last couple of weeks. This game really is a 6-pointer because of the playoff race. It should be a terrific match. Let's dip into the email box now, and we'll start with Kelly from Salem, Utah, who watched the Real Salt Lake, New York game a few weeks ago and says that referee mistakes cost RSL the game. Now, Kelly asks, what can the league do to get better and more consistent officiating?
Well, Kelly, first of all, I agree with you. I thought Juan Pablo Angel did foul Olave. I don't think that goal should have counted. And Greg, there were lots of other really questionable incidents last week.
Well, there were a couple of red cards this past weekend. I was at the Colorado-New England game. Michael Kennedy blew the whistle for the end of the game when Colin Clark had a breakaway for Colorado. As my broadcast partner Brad Feldman said on the air, it's as if he never studied a top-level game. Now, let's be honest. The league this year started a new program. They have some full-time referees now that are part of the league. Is it getting better, and what can they do to make it even better?
Well, first of all, I'm going to defend the referees. I think they are getting better, and I think in the scheme of things, when you look around the world, you look at Reading's goal against Watford, these things happen.
Yeah,
what can the league do? Hire more full-time guys and pay them more money.
Well, it's always a good answer, a little bit more money. Juan in Los Angeles has been impressed with Chivas USA keeper Dan Kennedy in his last few starts. And Juan wonders, should Preki have stuck with Kennedy instead of bringing in Zach Thornton? And is there any chance Kennedy is the next Brad Guzan?
There's a chance, but let's not rush to judgment.
Right?
Yeah, I like Kennedy. Think he's a good young goalkeeper, but I think Preki couldn't afford to gamble. Made a good move to bring in Zach Thornton. I think Kennedy has potential.
Well, Kennedy obviously did well at UCSB, but you need the experience for Thornton, I think, best definitely for the playoffs. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at extratime@mlsnet.com. Don't forget to include your address and your shirt size so we can send you one of those great ET t-shirts. Time now for the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week, and Shep's awkward adoration of LD reaches the level wow.
Well, I was wrong. I love Landon Donovan. He shows speed. He shows finesse. Great little bit of skill. Here he shows power against DC United. And here, high soccer IQ, excellent technique. Wow, for me, Landon Donovan, the best player in the league.
Possibly the MVP. He wasn't even done because he showed a little killer instinct at the end. A triple for Landon Donovan on the Volkswagen Wow Moment of the Week. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Extra Time. Shep, what are you looking forward to in this week?
I'm sticking with the Galaxy. I want to see them play against Chicago. Big game.
Oh, battle the DPs. I'm looking at Columbus at New England. top of the table in the Eastern Conference. Join us again next week, and we'll kick it around.